Okay, so Yektayua Wan Yegan Walahti with Muchi. Tonight we have a very interesting topic, but just to start, and this is not to pressure you guys, we just want to remind you about our fundraising for the elders of the community. Your support is greatly appreciated. Please, if you can, share our post so everyone can know that they can help with this activity that is coming soon. Um, Now, to continue, and before we dive in to our topic tonight, I want to ask you to please keep an open mind. Because this topic, it might be a little strange for some people. And I would like to remind everyone that when it comes to faith and spirituality and beliefs, all of them are valid. And the goal of this workshop is not to make you change your system of belief or to convince you of anything. The goal of this workshop is just to learn more about these parts of our ancient culture that still remain. And so, with that in mind, we dive into the spiritual world of the ancestors, and you will see that later on we will travel through the three planes of existence. But to start, we're going to talk about um, a connection that these worlds have. And we're going to talk about the axis mundi. And this is a concept that refers to the center of the world. It is something cosmological and spiritual, and it has been present in many cultures throughout history. It usually represents the connection between the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. And it tends to be a symbol of harmony and balance. Often it is represented with a tree or a mountain or a pillar or any other object that connects the three levels of the universe. So the axis mundi has been represented in many cultures, not just in the ancestral culture of what is now El Salvador. So we will see a few examples. And first we have this giant tree in the Norse cosmology, and it's the Yggdrasil. Sorry about that. And indeed, it connected the 9 worlds in the Nordic cosmology. Then we have Mount Meru. This is a sacred mountain that is the center of the universe in the Hindu cosmology. Then we have the Bodhi tree in Buddhism. This is the tree under which Buddha found enlightenment. Then we also have Mount Olympus. This is the home of the Greek gods and goddesses. It was thought to be the center of the world. And finally, we come to Mesoamerica, and we have the ceiba or the kapok tree. I am not sure if you guys know it best as ceiba or as kapok tree, so that's why throughout this workshop, I use either of those two, but when I say ceiba, well, it's the same kapok tree. When I say kapok tree, it's the same ceiba. So the ceiba is a sacred tree that connects the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. And let me tell you something about the first time that I attended this very workshop. To me, it was mind-blowing and fascinating to know that our people's sacred tree was the kapok tree. In fact, I didn't know our ancestors had a sacred tree, because no one ever, not in school, not anywhere, had taught me about that. They did teach me about Mount Olympus. When I was in school, we had this whole unit where we talked about the Greek literature and the gods and goddesses, and we read books from that time and the mythology and all of that. But no one ever in the school system taught me that we also had a special tree in our ancient culture. So to me, to know this for the first time here in a Photo School, it was fascinating and definitely mind-blowing. Um, because these trees that are so majestic, so beautiful, they are not only beautiful, but they have this deep spiritual meaning. So the ceiba or kapok tree is known scientifically as Ceiba pentandra, and it has been very important, and it is a sacred tree for many Mesoamerican cultures. It is relevant because it has a large size. As you can see, it can grow up to 230 feet, and it has a long life. It can live up to 500 years, and it is also relevant because of the spiritual and cosmological symbolism. In the picture that you see on your screen right now, we can see a large ceiba. You can see how big it is in comparison to a person. By the way, the person over there is Damachtiani, and even if that picture was taken from afar, the tree still doesn't fit in the frame because it is so large. So it is not difficult to see why our ancestors believed it was a tree that joined the three planes of existence. Now, how was the belief around the ceiba tree? Well, it was believed that its roots went down all the way to the underworld, and its branches reached the sky. So this tree connected those three levels of the universe, and it was definitely very important to the cosmovision. The kapok tree was part of ceremonial places, and it was the center of important religious rituals. On the image on your screen, you can see the illustration where the ceiba tree has its roots on the underworld. On the trunk, we have our plane of existence, and the branches, they go beyond and reach to the world above that we now know as heaven. So this tree used to be, and it still is, in ceremonial and important places. Or maybe 80%. Remember that if you have any questions or comments, you are free to open your microphones and let us know your comments. So, continuing with the workshop, we have here, are there any comments in this moment? I hear a microphone.
I didn't mean to comment other than at Tazumal there's a really beautiful tree, but I don't know if it's that same type of tree.
I think there is one. I've been there, and yes, there are a few beautiful trees in there. I'm not sure if there's a specific ceiba that is somewhere in a prominent place. But yeah, I have seen that they have pretty beautiful trees at Tazumal. Um, okay, so to move on, we have here some fragments from the Popol Vuh that talk about Sebas and about creation. Popol Vuh is a sacred book that is in Guatemala. This book was found at an ancient ceremonial place. On top of it, nowadays, there is a Catholic church because what happened was that the Spaniards built that church on top of an already important spiritual and ceremonial place. So under that Catholic church, they found the Popol Vuh, which is a book that contains stories on the creation. And this is a book that is very important to the Maya culture. Now, let's see the first fragment. If anyone wants to help me read the first one, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah,
That first paragraph. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Brooklyn.
yeah, I could help read it.
Thank you.
First, yeah, do you just want me to read the whole thing?
The first paragraph.
Okay. First there was the vastness of the heavens and earth. There wasn't any man, nor animal, nor bird, nor fish, crab, tree, stone, cave, ravine, no grass, nor forest. Only the skies existed. There wasn't anything made, only the calm ocean and the sky in all its vastness.
Thank you, Brooklyn. Something to highlight is the fact that in the creation myth of many cultures, the world starts covered in water. You can find this in the Bible. We just saw it here in the Popol Vuh, and for the Nawa people, it is the same thing. For the Nawa people, in the beginning, there was only water, and in this water was where Sipati lived. Now, someone else that wants to help me read the second fragment?
I could do that if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Uh, then the great Saiba tree, the Yashe, I'm saying that wrong, I'm sure, was planted in the center of the world. Its roots went down to Balba,
Shivalba.
Sibalba, the underworld, and its branches reached the heavens. The sacred tree held the three levels of the universe, connecting the underworld, the earth, and the heavens.
Thank you, Charles. So you see, as I mentioned, the Popol Vuh has the creation stories from the Maya people. However, in Guscatan, in El Salvador, we also find ceiba trees in locations that were very important. So we can conclude that there were similitudes to the Maya people in that they thought of ceibas as sacred trees that marked important places. And these ceiba trees were at the very beginning of creation. Now, someone else that wants to help me read this first fragment?
I can read it.
Okay.
And 4 trees were planted in the 4 cardinal points to hold the sky. These trees were ceiba trees, strong and robust, their branches outstretched to hold the firmament in place. The trees at the east was red, at the west black, at the north white, and at the south yellow.
Thank you, Kwa. So we see on the image that there are the four ceiba trees that work as the pillars of the world. Now, one more volunteer to read the last fragment.
I can read.
Okay.
Okay, just give me one moment. I'm just pulling up from my drive. Okay, let's do it
Okay, that's
safely.
okay.
Okay, so it says here, and the God said, let there be earth, and instantly the earth appeared, emerging from the water. Then they planted the kapok tree, the yashche, so that it became the axis and pillar of the world. And that is how creation was completed, with the kapok tree as the central pillar that kept balance.
Thank you, Gabriela. So we see that the ceiba was a very important tree because it was what held the world and kept it in balance. Now, in every main city, the kapok trees or ceiba trees were planted not only because they are beautiful and because they provide shade, but also because they have a deep spiritual and cultural meaning. They were seen as the guardians of the cities, the ones that protected the people, and they were also seen as the points of connections between the world of the humans and the world of the lords and ladies, los señores y las señoras. That's how they were called, right? So these kapok trees were the center of the local universe, and they also helped strengthen the cultural and spiritual identity of the community. Sadly, nowadays, these guardians are in danger. As we know, pollution harms our forests, but something else that harms them is the neglect of the organizations in charge of the environment. In El Salvador, so many of these great trees are found isolated. So there is a single ceiba surrounded by cement. And in many cases, the roots that peek through the ground are cut off in the name of development and aesthetics. And of course, this damages the trees. So now we're going to we're going to watch this video. Let me see here.
250 años después, 2 siglos y medio. Su vida útil parece estar terminando, ubicada en el corazón del parque de Antiguo Cuscatlán. Nombre común ceiba, nombre científico ceiba pentandra, de la familia Bombaceae. Ese árbol de aspecto imponente por su frondosidad y follaje proporciona una excelente sombra. Por generaciones, niños y mayores han dejado transcurrir momentos agradables sentados bajo la copa de esta ceiba. También en ella se han tejido importantes hechos que acompañan la historia del municipio, pues está estrechamente ligada a la forma de vida y a las creencias religiosas de su gente. Para los mayas era un árbol sagrado, el árbol de la vida. Pero a esta ceiba, los expertos le detectaron un hongo que está comiendo sus entrañas y el avance es considerable. Por eso, avalaron que lo mejor era cortarla de raíz antes que...
Okay, so that's it for the video. This was a piece of news from a few years ago, and it narrates how a kapok tree that had lived for 2.5 centuries had to be cut down. This tree was in the center of the city of Antiguo Cuscatlán. The video says that the reason why it had to be cut down was because it had a type of fungus that was killing it. it was a very sad day when they had to cut down the ceiba at the heart of Antiguo Cuscatlan, because that ceiba had a lot of history. That ceiba was a connection with the ancestors. Now, let's remember that what is now Antiguo Cuscatlan, its name is literally Old Cuscatlan. Well, Antiguo Cuscatlan was the first city that the Nawa people founded in this territory. So we could say that it is the original Gusgatan. And we know that from there, the Nawa people expanded and were founding other towns and cities, and that gave us the name of Land of Necklaces. Now, the ceiba that was there had to be cut down. So that connection, that history just went away. And as I was mentioning, it is very sad when this happens, because we start forgetting our history. And in the video, the reporter also say that for the Maya people, he said for the Maya people, ceibas were sacred trees. And we now know that ceibas were sacred for the Nawa people as well. Now, talking a little bit more about Antiguo Cuscatlan, Old Cuscatlan, in Nahuatl, it was known as Gusgatan. As I mentioned, it was one of the first and most important cities here in this territory. This city quickly became the political and economical and cultural center for the Nawa people in the region. It was founded in a very strategic place because it has hills, it had rivers that provided protection and natural resources, which made possible that the city was or became a prosperous commercial and agricultural center. The city was known for its corn, bean, and cocoa fields, but it was also known for its textiles and ceramics. The picture that you see on your screen is the old coat of arms of Antiguo Cuscatlan, and we see there a representation of the natural resources. We also see an indigenous person, and we see the kapok tree or the ceiba tree. Let me tell you that nowadays, a lot of people that haven't studied Nahuatl, think that the meaning of Cuscatan, the meaning of Cuscatlan, is place of precious stones. However, we that have studied Nahuatl, we know that it means land of necklaces. And it is very interesting that in the coat of arms, you can actually see a necklace, like making a reference to the actual meaning of Gusgatan. Now, a few years ago, all towns and cities had to change their coat of arms. The government want to make them modern or something like that. And so a lot of elements from the coat of arms were lost. However, the modern one, the current one, still kept the kapok tree, still kept the ceiba tree, a tree that has been important since Gusgatan was first founded. Here we have another very important ceiba tree, and this one is in the town of Asunción in Izalco. And this is well known because of a tragic, violent event. On this ceiba, Feliciano Ama, who was an indigenous leader, was hung, was executed in 1932. He was accused of instigating the uprising from 1932. And he was hung in this tree. This tree is right in front of the church of that town of Asunción. And so this event showed the government's brutal repression against the indigenous people. We could say that this event marks the separation that our people have, the negation that our people have to their indigenous roots, because after these repressions, people were afraid of speaking Nawa. People were afraid of using their traditional clothing because if they spoke in Nahuatl, if they used their traditional clothing, then they were associated with the uprising, and the government sometimes captured those people, sometimes even executed them. So everyone was afraid, and that's why everyone, or most everyone, stopped wearing their traditional clothes and speaking Nahuatl. So this event with Feliciano Ama's execution is not only a tragic memory, but it's also an important memory because it shows the history of the indigenous resistance in El Salvador. Now, this is a list of other important kapok trees. Some of them are no longer there. Some are still alive. Some of them, just like the one in Antiguo Cuscatlán, have been cut down because of fungal issues. And we have the second one here, the ceiba in the town of Santiago, Texacuangos. And I knew this ceiba. I went to that ceiba and sat under its shade. It was very large. It was very beautiful. And the sad thing is that a tragedy happened to it as well. About, let's say, 5 years to 7 years ago, that ceiba that was in the center of the town, right across the church, was dying because it had also a fungal infection. So the experts were called and they said it had to be cut down because it had become a danger for people. A danger because it could fall down. It was very sad for the whole community. However, I personally believe that the local government of the town of Santiago Texacuangos did a great job in preserving history, in preserving the ceiba, because even though they did cut it down, maybe a year after they had cut the old ceiba down, they planted a new ceiba in the exact same place that the old ceiba had been. It is still young. It is, you can see it now in the picture of your screen. It doesn't look as big as the other examples that we have seen, but it's just a young ceiba. But the great thing about it is that even if the old ceiba is gone, there is a new one to mark that very important place. Now, there is also another one that I want to highlight, and is the ceiba in the town of Cojutepeque. And this one has inspired writers and poets here in El Salvador. And the last one that I want to highlight is the one in Tacuba, which is also famous because of a violent event. It was the site where many indigenous leaders were executed by firing squad in 1932. And so many people might say, they're just trees. But we know that they are not just trees. They are living history. They're a legacy that the ancestors left us. And despite the invasion and the violent attempts at erasing the ancestral spirituality, the kapok trees, the ceiba trees, still stand, marking the sacred places of our ancestors. Most of these ceibas, by the way, most of them are either across or nearby churches, especially in old towns. Why is that? Because when the Spaniards came to Guzgatan, those towns already existed. The sacred places already existed. So what the Spaniards did was to build Catholic churches to erase the ancestral spirituality and to replace it with the religion that they brought. So, whenever we see these ceiba trees, let's remember that before the church, that sacred ceiba was already there because that was a sacred place to the Nawa people. And now we move on to the three planes of existence for the Nawa people. And so we have Gaigahku up there, Gataltikpak on the earth, and Gamiktan on the depth of the earth or the underworld. Remember that if any of you have any questions, just open your microphones and let us know about your questions or comments. If there are no questions or comments, we move on and we see this first world, this first realm, Netaltikpak. This is the earthly world, also known just as Earth. It is the plane of existence where humans and animals lived. Taltikpak is understood as an in-between space. It is a balanced realm that sits between the underworld and the upper world. It is here that the ceiba tree stands, and it is in Taltikpak that we have caves, and these caves are viewed as direct gateways to the underworld. And that is why on the picture we have the image of a cave. These caves are called barrancas by the elders, so like ravines. And it is believed that they are those gateways that will take you to the underworld. So usually wherever in the town that there is a cave, there will be scary stories about that cave. So people are usually scared of them. Since these places are believed to be the doors to the underworld, some people, not everyone, just some people in town go there to practice, let's say, witchcraft or other magic rituals. But for the majority of people, these types of rituals are seen as something bad or something scary. But there are a lot of stories. We had a workshop with one of the Nancing, I believe it was Nancing Guillerma, and that workshop was all about scary stories from Witzapan. And one of those stories was about the cave that they have there. And apparently, people went there to ask for favors. And they had to bring like sacrifices. There was another story where if you went in and you went all the way in, you made it to other places. And so there is always, they are very mysterious places, these caves. What is interesting is that still nowadays, these natural places, these caves, are believed to have a connection with another world. So now, from the Talticpac, we enter the Barranca into Gamectan, the underworld. Gamectan means the depth or in the depth, something deep. In Nahuatl, it is believed that the underworld is like under the earth, in the depth. It is the kingdom of the dead. And if we examine the word itself, we see that it has two words. Meek, this first part, seems to come from migi, the verb to die. And then we have tan, and we have already studied this. This is land, right? So the land of the dead. After someone dies, this is where their spirit, where their tunal go. Nowadays, church has made people associate Mictan with hell. However, the ancestors saw it in a different light. Gamiktan is similar to hell, only in that they both are believed to be below the earth, but they are different in that in Gamiktan there is no fire. It is not a place of torment. It is just the land of the dead and where tunals go when you die. Earlier, we were talking a little about the Popol Vuh, and one of stories in the Popol Vuh has to do with two siblings that have to go through challenges so that humans can exist. This is in the Mayan mythology, but it is similar to the Nawa stories. In the Nawa stories, there are also two brothers that have to fight Sipakti to start creation. Now, back to the Popol Vuh and the story of the two brothers. Their names are Unapu and Ixbalanque. And in this story, they enter the underworld through a cave, and in the underworld, they find the Lord of the underworld, Xibalba, who gives them challenges that they have to overcome. We can highlight the fact that to the Maya and the Nawa cultures, caves are the gateways to that underworld. And here we have some stories where Tamachtiani Hector interviewed some of the elders. He was asking them about Gamiktan, about the underworld, about hell, about what they believed, about what they had heard from their parents and grandparents. And I think here at this point, it is important to remember that our culture is the product of syncretisms. So in the studies, I think we're not going to listen to them all. Maybe we can send these recordings to you later, but in the stories, you hear a bit of an amalgamation between the ancient beliefs and the religion that the Spaniards brought. But also, in the last few decades, other denominations besides Catholicism have left their footprint in the beliefs of the elders about heaven and the underworld. So, taking that into account, we're going to listen to the stories that don't have too much of a Christian influence. And these stories are told by Nancy Ursula Garcia. Here I made a little bit of a transcription, a little bit of a summary of her story. So let's listen to her.
Va con un perrito. Sí. El perrito dice, la señora lleva la punta de un gran palo pesado verde, apenas lo va arrastrando. Viene el perrito, dice que apareció, lo agarra la punta de la vara, el palo que va arrastrado, lo lleva en su boca, lo lleva mordido, lo levantó. Entonces la viejunta va caminando más rápido, está un gran río. Sí. Vaya, dice que le dijo un espíritu, el espíritu de Dios. Ese perrito, como usted fuiste a tu adoración, los perros en otra vida, hoy mira, te apareció y te ayudó para que te hagan el palo. Hoy ya llegaste pronto, hoy vas a poner el palo así como un puente, que pase la punta en lo seco donde estás, y la punta que caiga al otro lado, y ahí vas a pasar. Ya hasta el perrito va a pasar allí, porque es tu amigo. Dice que pasó primero la señora, ella le daba que el perrito vaya adelante, el perrito decía, parado, lo mira que ella primero vaya adelante, él va a ir atrás. Entonces vino, se fue la alarma, dice, allá dice, adelante en el palo, se fue. Y entonces dice, llega la alma de la otra, lleva su palo, lo va jalando. Entonces dice que, no, este palo dice mucho, pesa, le voy a cortar un pedazo, estaba en su pedazo curto. Lo partió el pedazo, dice, porque mucho pesaba. Y ese pedazo le hizo falta ahí que llegara hasta el otro lado del río. Cuando ella lo tiró el agua, jaló el palo y se fue. Sí. Entonces dice el perrito, Dios le dio su potencia, habló, vaya, le dice, eso te pasa por mala, cuando subiste en otra vida, gozaste y tuviste de todo. Por eso yo me aparecí solo para ver tu mate y tu fin, qué fin vas a tener. Hoy te pasó eso por mala, le cortaste el pedazo de palo que ya no pudiste y hoy te hizo falta. Sí. Hoy no vas a pasar ni vos ni yo. Ahí quedaron que no pudieron pasar porque ella no pudo hacer el trabajo bien.
Okay, so
ahí anda el gentío, puros locos, dice como que están en el mercado, cada quien haciendo su trabajo.
Sí, y ahí están todos los tunales de la gente que ya se fue.
Ahí están todos los tunales. Sí. Y no voy lejos.
Okay, so Nancy Ursula tells us about what happens after you die. She tells the story of two ladies, one of them with a lot of effort carrying her the log that she will take to use as a bridge to cross the river and cross to the other life. And since she was good with animals, she was good with dogs, the dog helped her cross over. And there was the other lady that didn't want to carry her log because it was too heavy, and she cut off a piece of it. And then when she made it to the river, the log wasn't long enough for her to use it as a bridge. And something interesting here is that they go with a dog, right? The dog helps them. And depending on how you were with dogs when you were alive, they helped you or they just didn't help you at all. Another interesting thing is that another of our elders, another Nancy, in another workshop, told us that not only dogs help you in the afterlife. She said that cats also can help you. And she was like, if you are good with your pets, with your cats and with your dogs, then they are going to help you to get to the next life. Something else that Nancy Ursula says in this first recording is that where or Mictan, where the tunals are, looks like a market. She said that it is very crowded, that there are a lot of people, and that everyone is just doing their job. So it is a very lively place. Here we have another audio. We're not going to listen to it at the moment, but what Nancy says in that one is that she saw her aunt. Her aunt had passed away, and she saw her like climbing a gravel hill, and the gravel kept slipping down, so kept falling down, and so she was kind of stuck. And in that vision, in that journey, she also saw her mother, and her mother was almost at the bottom, all the way down the hill, and she couldn't advance. She couldn't climb up because that gravel was too loose, and so it was very difficult to make it up. Something important about this second story is that people have to make it to the top of that gravel hill to be able to get to the next life. But this part with the gravel hill, Nancy Ursula says this happens to people that were bad while they were alive. And there's a part in that recording where Nancy Ursula says that in that place, the Tunals cleanse from their sins, that they have to repent. She also tells Tamashtiani in that interview that at the bottom, there is something that spins. We do not know what it is, but there is something that spins. And if the tunals fall all the way down there, they are crushed. So that is why they are afraid and they are in a hurry to get to the top and make it to the next life. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can open your microphones. So now that we have already learned that the Ceiba trees are a connection to the other planes of existence, here is another way to connect to these other places. We as mortals, I guess, can go to the underworld where tunals are, and we could probably communicate with beings from the upper world. Now, to know more about this, we have to talk about the verb temigi. Temigi is to dream. This is an intransitive verb. And if we study the migi, we see it contains two words, te and migi. Migi means to die, and te means no. So it literally says to not die. And this idea that when you dream, you are dying a little is not exclusive to the Nawa worldview. We will see similar concepts in other cultures. In the Nawa worldview, when we dream, we already studied this, our tunal leaves our body and travels. So during our dreams, we can encounter the tunals of both living and deceased people. So this is what happened to Nancy Ursula in her story, where she saw her aunt and where she saw her mom. Nancy Ursula was still alive, but she was able to see the tunals of her family members that had already passed away. So, back to dreaming and back to dreams being a little bit of a small death. It means that when we dream, we have the ability to access these other worlds because your body is resting, but your tonal remains active. In the Nawa culture, when you fall asleep and you begin to dream, your tonal is leaving your body, and the elders say that the body is empty, like a shulung. A shulung is a vessel. So, like we mentioned in another workshop, the body is the empty container and the tunal is like a water that fills it. We also talked in last week, I believe, in last week's workshop that dreaming and our tunal leaving our body is the way that the Nawa culture explains deja vu. Your tunal lives every night when you sleep, and what it sees, you see in the form of dreams. When you meet someone and you feel you've met them before, it might be because your tunals encounter each other while you were dreaming. Or whenever you feel you have already done something or been somewhere, it might be that you in your physical body haven't done that or been there, but that you in the form of your tunal has been there or done that when it's out of your body and exploring around. So that is the Nawa explanation for deja vu. And here we have an example of another culture that has a similar idea. This is in the Kabbalah. They say that when a person sleeps, part of their spirit, leaves their body. And what leaves their body is not the whole soul, not the whole spirit, but the part that they call neshama or ruach. It says it rises and leaves the body temporarily. And doesn't this sound almost exactly like what we have been discussing? The only difference is that in Kabbalah, the spirit does not live completely. But the belief is the same. Sleep is a small death, a partial death, where the spirit leaves the body without losing its connection to it. It is fascinating, I think, to see that this culture that is across the world has such a similar understanding of dreaming. Here we have more examples of cultures that share a worldview similar to that of the Nawa people. We have the ancient Egyptians, and they believe that the soul have many parts, and the Ba could leave the body when they slept. And what they saw in the dreams were understood as divine messages. Same with the Yoruba culture in West Africa. They believe that the soul can travel during sleep and encounter ancestors or deities called orishas, and the dreams are believed to be spiritual revelations. So the Nawa culture is similar to those other cultures. So their ideas of dreams doesn't sound so strange anymore, right? Because this belief exists all around the world. And we have some more examples. The Quechua and Aymara peoples, this is in South America, they believe that the soul, the Ahayu, can leave the body when you sleep, and they can travel to the world of the Apus or can receive messages from the ancestors. And this is very interesting because they believe that if the Ahayu, which would be Artunal, did not return properly, there are rituals to recall the soul. So this is like the recalling of Artunal, right? So it's pretty similar. Also, Mapuche people believe that the vital spirit, which we call Atunal, can encounter other spirits, ancestors, or even spiritual adversaries. And the Mapuche people also believe that the soul, the spirit, can leave the body. So this is not unique to the Nawa people in El Salvador. We have here more cultures that have similar idea. In the North American indigenous traditions, they believe that the spirit can go out for a walk. And then we have in the Tibetan Buddhism, they are taught to remain aware during sleep and to use dreaming as a spiritual practice. And they say that, or they believe that sleep is similar to the process of dying, and that they can train through lucid dreaming to be prepared for death. So we have a similarity there in believing that sleeping is like dying a little, right? What we want to emphasize with all of these examples is that what our elders say is not strange. We see that the Nawa understanding of dreams is similar to how other cultures in other parts of the world and in other times think about dreams. It doesn't just happen in Gusgatan. It has happened in many cultures throughout history. And we're going to listen to a few more recordings. We won't be able to listen to them all. First, we're going to start with Nancy Fidelina, and she said something very interesting. She said that when she is bored, she says to herself, I want to go on a journey. So she sits down, she decides where she wants to go, then she falls asleep, dreams it, and she goes. Now, let me play that recording. Give me a sec.
Por mí he tenido sueños y yo sola estoy en la casa, digo, ya me aburrí, me voy a ir a andar, voy a ver qué consigo. Pero yo solita salgo, me voy para caminar entre un camino bonito. Ya por allí empieza a haber piedras grandes, agua, y encuentro otra, me dicen, ¿dónde vas? Voy a pasear, le digo, ya me aburrí de estar en la casa, voy a ver qué consigo por ahí. Pero cambiar de camino, ese camino es malo, hay solo malos espíritus. Ajá. Y si te logran agarrar, ya no vas a regresar. Ajá. Por eso yo en mi sueño veo que yo cambié de camino. Sí, sí. Pero Por eso es cierto, porque yo lo he vivido.
Sí.
Sorry. So, what she says here is that basically she can control her dreams. Tamashtiani during the interview asked her if anyone can do that, if anyone can control their dreams, if anyone, when they are bored, they can say, oh, I want to go on a journey, and they decide, and then the tunal go explore. And she said, yes, we all have the power to do this through our dreams. Another interesting thing is that she says that when your tunal goes to the world of tunals, there are a lot of paths, a lot of places that you can visit. And some of those roads are not good ones. When you take some roads, they lead to places where there are bad tunnels. And she says that she sometimes found other tunnels that warn her not to go in certain ways, in certain paths, because they were not the best places to be. Let's listen a little bit to the other recording.
Sí, sí, ese queda solo, digamos, el cuerpo, el tonal sale, el espíritu se le anda a platicar donde le da ganas de ir, el cuerpo queda solo. Ya cuando regresa, entonces como quien abre su cuerpo y entra el espíritu.
Sí.
Ya se duerme en la casa.
Okay, so that's just a little bit of this recording. And in this one, she mentions how the body is left empty when you are sleeping because your tonal goes and walks around. Now, here we have Nancy Ursula again, and in this one, she's talking about the process of directing or of your tunal leaving your body, and how is it that it is a little death, but you don't actually die. Nancy Ursula in this recording also says that when you miss someone, you can direct your tunal to go and meet with the people that you miss. So let's listen to Nancy Ursula. Just give me a sec.
Como le digo, son las dos cosas unidas, que es un solo, que es el tonal y el guillo, que es el respiramiento que tenemos nosotros. Es cierto, la pregunta está muy linda. El guillo queda con nosotros, por eso no nos morimos, porque estamos respirando. Vaya, ¿qué pasa? El tunal se encuentra con otros tunales de los difuntos. Y ya nos encontramos, ay, yo soñé mi mamachón, que mi mamachón me vino a ver, que mi mamachón me vino a decir esto y esto. Allí nos encontraban los tunales, los espíritus de ella, de los muertos y de mí. ¿Por qué se encontró mi espíritu, mi tunal, con el tunal de mi mamá? Porque mi mamá le ha dolido, que me ha dejado, y ella quiera que ya yo me vaya también, que quiera llevarme. Pero como dice mi Dios, hija, todavía no es tu hora, tenemos que tenerte aquí. Entonces tengo.
Another interesting thing about what Nancy Ursula says, besides the fact that dreaming or temigi is a little death, but we don't die, because as we saw in the other workshop, we have two essential parts, the ihiu and the tunal. The ihiu is the one that goes and explores. Sorry, the tunal is the one that leaves our body and explores. But the ihiu stays with us. And that is why Nancy Ursula says that is why we do not die. Something else to note from what Nancy Ursula says is that the directing your tunal to go somewhere or to go meet someone works sort of both ways, because you as a living person can direct your tunal to go and meet someone that you are missing. But Nancy Ursula says that she used to dream with her mother, and she says, why did I met with my mom's tunal? And she says, because my mother is sad that she has left me. So her mother was missing her, and so that is why she directed, she as a tunal without a body went and met Nancy Ursula in her dreams. So in English, some might describe what Nancy Ursula and Nancy Fidelina and the other Nancys talk about as astral projection. And here we have a little phrase that Tamashtiani wants you guys to see, wants us to share with you, because it is sort of food for thought. This is something that happens every single night. When we dream, our spirit doesn't die. It simply walks because it is an explorer, right? And with that, we move on to Gaigahku. This is the upper world. This is the celestial realm associated nowadays with God or the Supreme Being. I want to talk a little about the colors in Nahuatl. In level 1, we study that sorry, I was reading some comments. We study that in the past, Shushuknach was used to say both green and blue. And why is this? The explanation that the elders give is that Shushuknach, the color green, seeing from afar becomes blue. So it is basically the same color. It's just the distance that changes how you perceive the color. And how does this relate to Gaigahku? Well, because when talking about the color of the sky, the elders used to say that it was Shushuknach, so it was green. And they say that it was green, it was Shushuknach, because what we were looking when we looked up to the sky were the celestial mountains. And they are so far away that the color becomes blue, and that's why the sky is Shushuknach. So both green and blue, but seen from the distance. And let me tell you that I find this incredibly interesting because the Nahuatl language is not the only one where blue and green are said with only one word. In the past, in Japanese, green and blue were understood to be just shades of the same color. And as it happened in that language, where later they created a new word for each shade, in Nahuatl, nowadays we also have another word for blue, which is susul. So, the elders say that there is another world above us. And in these worlds, there are other beings. And maybe we would call them aliens. Here we have another story from Nancy Guillermo. Let's listen to her a little bit.
He oído los casos que platicaban los mayores, mis padres. Mis padres se acostaban en el patio a contarnos casos así. Y nosotros como cipotes, nosotros nos acostábamos junto de él, poníamos un petate grande. Y es cierto que nos contaban eso, que había otro cielo arriba en el aire, que había tierra, decían, pero dicen que bajaban unos animales como que eran garzas o sopes, pero inmensos, dicen. Y si lograban a la gente se lo comían. Y si no lograban nada, pero se rebuscaban, aunque sea con los animales, como aquí siempre.
Okay, so in her story, by the way, I really like it when Nancy Guillermo tells this story because she starts and she sets the scene, and she says that they used to lay down on their yard with her parents, and her parents used to tell them, she and her siblings, stories, and one of those stories was about how there was another world above. And from that world above, creatures came down, and they are described as people eaters. She describes them as looking like vultures and having large feet with which they caught people. So we see that there are other beings in the sky in Gaigascu.
Existían animales.
And here we have more stories. This is from Nancy Sixta. Let's listen to her for a moment.
Y allá arriba dice, se ve bien verde, verde, arriba dice, me decía ella, ahí son unas grandes montañas, que hay fieras, me decía ella. Allí hay fieras, por allá arriba hay fieras, porque allí son grandes montañas, según dicen, decía ella, porque son tres cielos. Y allá arriba son montañas, pero sí también ha de haber gentes, pero no sé cómo son. Pero total que bajan unas fieras que nos pueden comer, dice, comen gente. Son unos animales que viven por allá arriba.
Okay, so in this one, Nancy Sixta starts saying that Gaigascu, so up above, it looks really green. And remember that Nancy Sixta's first language is Nahuatl, so she's bilingual in Nahuatl and Spanish. And you see there that she says that it is really green. And this has to do with the explanation that we just heard about why the elders believed the sky was shushuknach, so green. And she continues to say that there are large mountains in that place. And since we are looking at them from very far away, they look blue. Nancy Sixta once again here says that there are people eaters in those mountains. She says that during the day they stay in Gaigascu, and at night they come down to hunt people. Let's listen to another moment because she tells another story here. Oh, sorry. Here.
Arriba, y eso, si llega a ver una persona, y me dice mi papá, mejor entremos, porque mucho nos está viendo para de este lado, mucho alumbrado por otro lado, y nosotros estamos parados viendo, y me dijo él, y aquella cosa va de dar vueltas y vueltas y vueltas, alumbrado por otro lado y nos pegaba el reflejo por donde nosotros estamos. Entonces, y me dice mi papá, mejor entremos, porque mucho nos está viendo para de este lado, mucho se da vuelta, me dice, y nos ve de este lado, y mejor entremos adentro.
In this part, Nancy Sixta is telling another story of beings from Gaigaku. She says she was with her father and suddenly they saw this object. It was round. It was like a ball, she says, and it was also bright. It was like a lamp. And so she was saying that it moved from place to place, and after they stared at it for a moment, her father told her to get inside the house because it could be dangerous. Maybe it could be the people eater. And now we have our last story, and this is from Taxing Renato.
Ya como 11 de la noche, habíamos salido a cazar. Entonces ya veníamos de regreso y aquí cerca donde vivo yo están unos terrenos que tienen como tipo cerritos. Y bueno, nos quedamos sentados por ahí descansando, platicando. De repente vimos que una luz venía antes no era calle, sino era vereda. Venía del lado de arriba, pero venía a una velocidad tan exagerada pero ni un carro venía así de veloz. Pegó un luzazo al lado arriba, en 3 luzazos se había cruzado un gran montón. Bueno, entonces nos quedamos asustados y nos quedamos pensando qué era. Pues esa misma noche, como a las 3 de la mañana me levanté y se veía del cielo una luz como una lámpara, pero digamos que sea un poco, una luz grande que venía.
In this story, Taxen Renato said he was there when it happened, so he is a first-hand witness. He says that he and a group of other people had gone at night to hunt, and it was around 11 p.m. And so once they were done, they were resting in a hill, and suddenly they saw a light that was moving very, very fast. He says faster than a car, and they were scared and they were wondering what it was. They made it home safe, and he says that same night around 3 a.m. He went outside and looked up at the sky, and he saw the same thing. He says it was like a light in the sky, similar to a lamp. He continues to explain that it looked like it gave a lot of light around, and it was very far away, so it was a strange thing. And well, they do not call them aliens. However, don't you think these last 2 stories sound a lot like what we think of as UFOs or aliens in the sky? Well, so this is all that we have for tonight. Time is almost up. But if you have any comments or any questions, now is your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So anyone else with a question or comment, something that you found strange or interesting, something new? Okay, so that
Oh,
was our
I
yes?
guess I have one question actually from about last week. Did
Mm-hmm.
did you say when you're talking about the clothes, regarding like the recalling your tunal or that type ceremony, did you say
Mm-hmm.
that the tunals could smell the iuhiu on the clothes? Is that?
No.
Oh,
What happens is that your ihiu is your voice, is your breath, and it is also your very own particular scent. And on the recalling of the tunal, if you remember, you needed a shirt, one of your shirts. And when the person that was helping you was calling your name, calling your tunal, they had that shirt and they were going around the house with that shirt. And why do we have to use a shirt, one of your shirts? Because the idea or the elders say that what happens is that your tunal sticks or clings to that shirt, and then when you put it on, it gets inside your body, it goes back to your body. Does it make sense?
yes. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Brooklyn?
just for me, I didn't
Yeah.
know the terms that we had for specifically like the underworld and stuff. Like I had heard the Maya, Shibaba term
Mm-hmm.
before, so I'd never heard Galmikdan. So I'm really happy to know that we have our own terms for those, so that we can promote those in the world. That these are our worldviews.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that comment. And yes, indeed, it is. I think it is really nice, really satisfying as people who is part of Gusgatan, that we are descendants of the Nawa people. It is really nice when we find out more about the worldview of the Nawa people that came before us. So thank you for that comment, Brooklyn. Okay, if there is not any more comments, I just want to remind you that tomorrow and Friday, we won't have our workshops and tutoring session because of the Thanksgiving celebration you guys have in the USA. So we'll see you till next week. Thank you for being here, and Yek Tayua.
Nawa.
Shawa.